So today we're discussing the news that Jersey's Social Security Department has scrapped benefits for young job seekers living with their parents. One of the recently introduced changes in the state, a 4-year spending plan. So up until now, a job seeker aged between 19 and 24 could claim income support even if they did live at home with their parents, who in turn could be high owners. But from today, young people under the age of 25 will no longer be able to make their own claim for benefits. Well, let's get some reaction now. First up, backbench politician Deputy Sam Mezec, who's from the party Reform Jersey. He spoke to our very own Olivia Lepointevin earlier on.
I think it's another example of how the government we have at the moment is completely viciously and with a mean spirit targeting people for these cuts to public services. We've seen the Christmas bonus is going to be scrapped, now income support for under 25s. It's just a sign that the government we have has no moral compass whatsoever. This is going to put lots of young people through hardship. I'm already aware of several examples of people suffering from mental illnesses who've been put in absolute misery because of these changes and the worry that they've got about how this is going to affect them. And all at the same time that the government is sticking its fingers in its ears and refusing to consider alternatives which are going to be far less damaging to society overall.
But we must be clear here in the sense that it's only those living at home who are going to be affected. So those who are already, living in their own accommodation or independently aren't affected by the changes.
Well, just because you're living at home with your family doesn't mean you're not capable of suffering through hardship. You know, the whole point of income support for young people is that it's meant to be something that helps them get on their feet when they're going through bad times. You know, perhaps they've lost their job and become unemployed. You know, how about the kids who leave school at 16, get a job straight away, fault of their own, lose it when they're 23, and all of a sudden find that they're not entitled to anything despite having paid into the system for so many years. You know, it's completely morally bankrupt and unfair. But the one most dangerous thing that it's likely to do is that there are kids at the moment who may be on income support because of whatever their personal circumstances are, who because of this and because of the trauma that it may make them go through because of, you know, their own ability or perhaps their mental illness, they're just going to not bother signing up for it. They're going to go off the grid. Income support's going to forget that these people even exist. So what that will do is that it will fix the government's figures to make it look like they've got unemployment down when they actually haven't. And it takes these kids out of eyesight so nobody can make sure that they're actually all right. And they'll pop up again once they're 25, and by then perhaps lots of damage could have been done.
Up to now, the system has not been means tested. Surely that's a good thing that this is now going to become a kind of more means tested initiative, because surely up to now some people whose parents were earning a substantial amount of money or enough were able to still claim benefits because they were living at home and didn't have a job. Well,
I don't think anybody's going to resent saying to kids from wealthy backgrounds that they shouldn't be allowed to stay at home playing Call of Duty all day rather than out there working. I don't think anyone's going to claim that that's unfair, and I think in that sense, if the government's trying to target those people, then that seems to me to be completely legitimate. The problem is that often the threshold for what it is for you to get income support is actually very low. And at the same time, when cutting public services, at the same time when we're going to introduce a health charge and waste disposal tax, it's those families on the borderline that are going to be really suffering from this and put through even more hardship. And, you know, I'm fed up of these people being the targets of this government for when they're trying to save money. Instead, what they should do is target the island's more wealthy. But they won't do that because it's a government of the rich for the rich. It's not a government of ordinary Jersey people.
But should the taxpayer really be funding or paying for income support for the under 25s when there are perhaps other groups which also need support?
Well, the government's cutting support for all groups. So, you know, they're indiscriminately targeting everyone. So it's not to say that if we do this, there'll be more money available to help those other people. There won't be, because the government's cutting support for everyone. You know, why 25? Why not 30? Why not 40? Why not 50? You know, it seems to be an arbitrary number pulled out of a hat. When you're 18 years old, you're an adult, and you should be treated like one. And, you know, it's going to affect the families who are just on that borderline of whether they get support or not. And I think that's morally reprehensible to be targeting them.
Surely this means if we did want kind of a more welfare state in terms of, you know, provision across the board for income support and benefit, surely that's going to mean at some point we would have to increase taxes. And do you think that's maybe something that unsettles the electorate out there?
Yes, it does, but that's because the government's dishonest with them about what that means. The fact is we've got an ageing population. We can't operate the same tax model whilst our elderly people are living longer and longer and being more healthy. It's a thoroughly good thing that they're living longer. It's a good thing that they're healthier, but someone's got to pay for it. So taxes are going to have to go up. There's a choice on how you do that because taxes are going up anyway. The government's raising a health charge and a waste disposal tax. The question is, do you tax everyone or do you focus purely on those who are able to pay it? So the wealthiest in the island. There's a cap on social security contributions, which if it were lifted, it would affect the smallest number of earners, but it would raise £26.4 million overnight. I think that's what we should be doing first, rather than targeting pensioners and young people.
You're the youngest politician in the States currently. From your experience growing up in Jersey and also those of your friends, how hard is it right now for young people, for those under 25?
I think it's pretty hard, to be honest. I'm quite lucky in my position, but I've got lots of friends who are incredibly intelligent, incredibly hardworking, but they really struggle to find jobs out there. They often struggle to keep jobs as well. And it's not through their own fault for being lazy or for not being good workers. It's just because the economy is in a really, really difficult position right now, and it's not creating the number of jobs that we need to sustain our population. The problem we have is that when you tax people more and when you take money out of the economy and sack public sector workers, you're actually going to damage economic growth. You're not going to create those jobs. All the evidence around the world shows that when you do that, you turn a recession into a depression, and we can't have that right now because too many people are going through hardship. If we had a stronger economy, people would get into these jobs much easier. They wouldn't need income support in the first place. People are coming out of school or coming back after university, and they're really struggling. And as I said, it's not because they're lazy, it's because the jobs simply don't exist. We've got 1,400 people unemployed in Jersey. Pick up the JP today, you won't find 1,400 job adverts there. Self-employed people in particular get a really rough deal at the moment, particularly with Social Security, where they have to pay twice as much as they would if they were ordinarily employed. That's completely wrong, and it stifles business growth. So what we need are government policies like that, changing these Social Security rules to get people on their feet so that they're in a position to start employing people or to start businesses, put some more investment into what they're trying to do. That's what will kickstart the economy, not sacking a whole bunch of public sector workers and taking benefits away from vulnerable people.
Over in Berlin, they have been experiencing over recent years a real start-up boom and supporting local small to medium-sized businesses. For you, do you think there's the same opportunity for young people under 25s to go out there and set up their own pop-up shop or their own small business?
If there are people in our island who, for that, it's suitable for them to be doing that, then the government should be doing everything it can do to support them. So that, they should be giving them free advice through Jacks on how they set up their business, perhaps give them a venue in which they can, start up their office for cheap rent in the first place. All of that sort of thing would be positive. But we have to remember that, we're an island of 100,000 people. Not everyone can be a business person here. We need plenty of people to be employees as well. And for those people, they need the economy to be growing so that they can slip into those jobs. They've got to have good training opportunities, and they've got to have decent wages so that they're not having to work full-time and go on income support as well.
Deputy Sam Mezec talking to Olivia Leponovan a little bit earlier on. He represents the Reform Jersey Party.